Fairly recently, I made a video announcing I made an account on Blogspot where I can write blog posts, share them through YouTube and social media. It's a much more convenient way to share information. I thought it'd be fun to try. I made a video announcing my first blog post, which is about Golden Dawn, a far right-wing party in Greece. And I probably should have expected it, but it kind of caught me off guard. I got a comment from someone telling me about white genocide, how people are destroying the white race, how it's terrible, and how we should all unite together and fight against the evils of multiculturalism, which I thought was very interesting for him to say. Considering the actual things he said were not relevant to my video or my blog post, I don't think that he should be taken seriously within this context, but he said a lot of stuff, so I want to read his comment piece by piece, go through it point by point, and explain what I think about it, because I think it's worth it, right? Why not? First off, multiculturalism is a program that is forced upon every and only white countries. First off, is it forced upon anyone? In my mind, when you say something's forced, you're implying that people are not free to do what they want. You take away their freedom and do something to them instead. But is this really an example of not having freedom in a situation? I mean, think about it. When you say freedom, that means your ability to do something, right? You have the freedom to live your life as you want, but that has to imply that other people have the freedom to live their lives as they want too, doesn't it? That's sort of like saying that if we have a world where people walking around the streets swearing all the time, and I want to live in a world where there's no swearing at all, we all have clean mouths, that is oppressing my freedom to live in a world where people don't say all of these bad things. But the fact is, that's not an example of oppression of freedom, because freedom implies that everyone does what they do with their lives and no one stops you. But the world doesn't have to conform to your desires. People are free to do what they want. From my perception, when you say multiculturalism, you imply people from other countries moving to where you are, correct? Well, how does that work? Are you saying that they shouldn't be allowed to move where they want to? Are you saying they should be forced to stay where they are? Are you saying that they should be barred from going from one place to the other on the basis of their race? I find that confusing. But it seems like the major concern here is that it's only happening to white countries. For example, people move to America, or the United Kingdom, or Germany, but not to Kenya, or Ethiopia, or Qatar. Why is that? Is it because it's a conspiracy theory to destroy white people? No, in my opinion, the answer is there's stuff to do here. There's invested capital here. There's wealth here. There's opportunity here. If I could move to Ethiopia and become a rich businessman, I would probably do it. But I can't do it because the opportunity doesn't exist. Instead, I stay here, or if I were to move someone, I would probably go to another wealthy country like Germany, or the United Kingdom, or Canada, and I would work there. There's more opportunity here, so I stay here and I do stuff here. I think that's fairly reasonable, right? But the funny thing is, as time goes on, you don't just have the white countries that are wealthy. You have other countries, specifically in Asia. You have Japan, obviously, which has been developed for a pretty long while. China, which is probably going to be the largest economy in the world soon. South Korea, which is flourishing at an astonishing rate. India, which basically has the largest population on Earth right now. A lot of development is happening, and as these countries become wealthier, people are moving from other areas to there. Why? Because there's opportunity. It's not people trying to destroy a race or a culture, it's people just looking for opportunity and doing what benefits them most in their lives. No conspiracy necessary. And there are actually countries that are white countries that aren't being infiltrated by non-white people because nobody wants to go there. A perfect example is Iceland, which there aren't a lot of non-white people there, because nobody wants to move there to Iceland. They're fine on their own, but why would you move in? They stay pretty isolated, and you would think that if someone's trying to destroy white people, they'd send their black minions to Iceland or other areas of the world, but that doesn't seem to be happening. So how do you account for that? In my opinion, it's just explaining what I was talking about. People make choices, and nobody chooses to move to Iceland. And that really goes by the next point he said. Multiculturalism is a program to turn every white country into a non-white country. This type of moving around doesn't happen in certain white countries that people don't want to move to. And it does happen to non-white countries that people can move to. Now, I know that there are some examples of countries in Asia, specifically Japan, that are known for being somewhat xenophobic. They don't even really like Chinese people in their country, let alone non-Asian people. So there is some resistance on an individual level, but the fact is people still move there, and as they're becoming wealthier and wealthier, although they're having problems with their economy, they're still relatively stable in some ways, people are still moving there. That's a reality of the situation. Once again, you don't need some cause destroying a population or a country, it's just the way people behave. But this is genocide. White genocide. And not just genocide, genocide. The N-O is capitalization, to show that you want no genocide happening. I find it funny that a lot of people compare themselves to other people on Earth who have been oppressed. Like, we're going through genocide, like you're the Jews in World War II and Nazi Germany, being exterminated in massive quantities. That's ridiculous. The fact is, you're not being killed. Nobody's hurting you. Genocide implies that you have a country with blue people and purple people, and the blue people are taking actions to kill all the purple people, so the country is just blue. But that's not the situation at all. You just have people doing what they want. And it makes me wonder what they're talking about with genocide. The only thing I can think of is you have this system where, say you have America with white people, and you have Mexicans moving in. The Mexicans and the Americans have babies, and that baby is not pure blood. That baby is not white anymore. Is that the genocide? If so, it's not genocide because nobody's killing anyone. It's about the future child who could exist. This child is born to a Mexican parent and a white parent. That's not genocide at all. That doesn't make any sense. If individuals choose to have children with each other, they make that choice. Nobody's being killed, nobody's being oppressed or anything. And that's the funny thing. If you go up to someone and they say, "Oh, I'm being oppressed by society," they probably don't know anything about oppression. There are millions of people on Earth today that are being severely oppressed, and they got it really bad. You don't know what that's like. If you live in the first world and you're sitting here relaxed, nobody's trying to hurt you, you're fine. Did you know that if you are white and you object to your own genocide, you're called a racist? This makes me ask, has this person been called a racist before? And if you've been called a racist before, what did you do that made you called a racist? In my mind, racist means that you judge people differently on the basis of their race and no other factors. Like, you don't look at their character, you don't look at their skill set, you just look at their race and judge them for that. You view them differently for being a black person than you would have if they were a white person. Well, that seems like what you're talking about here, because you're taking people who otherwise would have been fine, and you're saying they're not allowed to move into our country because they're destroying things and making the system not work. Isn't that odd? Isn't that not good? Now, I think I might understand where this person is coming from. Concern of racism, but issues of multiculturalism. There are a few possible topics here. One is the fact that in Europe there is more socialization than here in America. So if somebody just comes into your country, there's a greater chance that they'll be able to take stuff from you, rather than just being prosperous themselves. And then there are issues with certain individuals in certain groups who could be functioning in certain ways in society. One example is people who come from Middle Eastern countries and they try and pass Sharia law, restrictive Islamic law, and you may be opposed to that, and you should, because it would restrict your freedom. And another idea is the gypsies, which is a long, complicated topic. I won't even begin to start talking about that here, but the fact is, that's a concern. I understand that. But if you are judging these people solely on the basis of their race and not by what they do, doesn't that make you racist? If you're concerned about certain people coming in and doing certain things, and you want to pass more restrictive immigration laws, I can understand where you're coming from, but shouldn't it be based on something other than race? Shouldn't it be based upon what experience they have in life, what they can bring to the population? Or if your country has done anything to their country that would make them very eager to run away as fast as they can, like the US has done with the war on drugs? Is there anything else that you can consider other than race? Maybe if you did that, you would not be called a racist. If you say, "Oh, we don't want any of them Arabs in our country," yeah, you're going to be called a racist, because you're judging them on the basis of their race and viewing them negatively because of it. That's kind of what racism is. Well, guess what? My people, white people, are catching on to two things very, very quickly. Number one, multiculturalism is code for white genocide. And two, anti-racist is code for anti-white. Once again, I've gone through this, and I think the major issue with these types of comments is they aren't very specific with what they're saying. Like I said in the past, I had to make a large amount of guesswork, such as, what do you define as freedom? What do you define as racism? Is racism even bad? Should we call racism bad? What is your concern? What is multiculturalism defined as? How is it bad? How is multiculturalism creating white genocide? And from my perception, if you're sharing a tale of the apocalypse with people, but you aren't very specific on details, you're trusting that they just won't ask those questions, and you'll be able to pass on your message just fine. And that may work for some people in some situations, but from my perspective, if you're actually trying to get me to believe that there are evil brown people out there who are trying to commit genocide against me, you're going to have to do a better job. Like I said, I'm pretty comfortable here in the first world in a middle-class situation. I don't think anyone's coming to get me. And I don't think anyone's here to take away my freedom or destroy me as a race. Anything that happens to me personally and anything that happens to my genetics in the form of whether I procreate and continue my genetic material line, that's all my choice. So I don't view it as genocide, I don't view it as killing my freedom, and I don't view it as racist. If you want to convince me otherwise, talk to me. Thank you.